Access Minnesota. Issues that matter to you. Access Minnesota brings you the newsmakers and the stories that shape our everyday lives, with analysis from University of Minnesota faculty experts.
Welcome to Access Minnesota. Last fall, President Barack Obama challenged America's electric utilities to adopt smart grid technology. It will make the U.S. electric power system more energy efficient and more reliable. Joining us from Xcel Energy is Michael Lamb. Michael, welcome to Access Minnesota. And also joining us is Crystal Manik. Michael is an expert on smart grid energy. Tell us, first of all, what is smart grid technology?
Well, that's a great way to start, Jim, because the term smart grid is used so freely but lacks definition. It means something different to just about anyone you ask. To Xcel Energy, what it means is knowing what the energy is doing from the time it's a fuel source to the time it's actually used. So think of a breeze, wind to light, knowing what that energy is doing along the entire value stream of creating electricity and actually using it. Another example would be a lump of coal to cool air, knowing what the energy is doing from the time it's a lump of coal to the time it's used as in a refrigerator or an air conditioner. Today, consumers don't make decisions based on fuel source, don't make decisions based on what the actual cost of electricity is, which varies greatly throughout the day or throughout the week, depending on what time of day it is and what day of the week it is. In tomorrow's world, in a smart grid world, that kind of information will be available. So again, it's knowing what the energy is doing along the entire value stream of turning a fuel source into electricity.
Michael, the electric power system in America dates back to the Thomas Edison era, so the structure itself goes back almost, well, more than 100 years. Tell us what is happening now to the infrastructure. Are we seeing the electrical system aging a bit? Is it time for an upgrade?
You are correct. Fundamentally, the technology of creating electricity hasn't really changed a whole lot from the days of Thomas Edison. Fundamentally, it's you create steam, you turn a turbine, that generates electricity, and through wires and cables it gets delivered to homes and businesses. That still is fundamentally how it happens today. So that technology, which has an incredibly long life cycle. I mean, we put stuff in the ground. We implement infrastructure that lasts many decades. That doesn't change. That hasn't changed. What is changing is the technology, the IT technology, the smart technology that is on the peripheral, allowing customers to have better information about how they use electricity, allowing customers to control their devices via automatic means and based on their personal preferences. Integrating the data, allowing for us to better understand how the energy is used across the entire value chain of generation, transmission, and distribution is changing. So a piece of the infrastructure is changing, the computer piece, the IT piece, the communications piece, but the fundamental infrastructure of creating electricity and delivering it to homes really isn't changing.
Let's talk a bit about how technology will help consumers save on energy costs. From what I understand, with smart grid technology, you can actually send an impulse that will turn off an appliance or turn it on depending upon the peak demand. Tell us how that process works.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jim. That technology exists today and is being piloted in various ways across our country and in reality across the world. Let me give you a specific example of how things are changing today. And there's many different examples, but this is just one. Today, when you buy a new appliance, if you go and buy a Whirlpool appliance or whatever, or GE appliance, a refrigerator I'm talking about now, a refrigerator freezer, it will actually come with a smart thermostat already installed. So you can, just like a smart thermostat for your house, program how cold you want the freezer or how cold you want the refrigerator based off of real-time energy signals. And even if you take it to the next step, based off of the type of fuel source providing the energy. So if you are very environmentally conscious, you could pre-cool your freezer or refrigerator based on when the wind is blowing, for example, versus when a coal plant is online. Now, that technology isn't widely used, but it's an example of the type of technology that's coming our way. And once you tie that type of end device with the information from a smart grid, there's great value there.
How expensive will it be to implement smart grid technology? I know you have a pilot program going. Does it require a lot of change to the electrical system infrastructure, or are the changes more subtle than that?
That's a great unknown right now. We don't really know how much a smart grid will cost, and that's one of the fundamental reasons why we are doing our Smart Grid City project in Boulder, Colorado. Not only to test the costs, but also test and validate the benefits of a smart grid so we can make more intelligent decisions on how to deploy this somewhat nebulous term, smart grid technologies, across a broader footprint.
What are you learning so far from the project in Boulder?
What we're learning is that there's a great demand out there. There's a great demand and a lot of interest in becoming better, more intelligent, more informed energy consumers. Not trying to be offensive in any way, but when it comes to energy in this country and probably in the Western world, we've been somewhat dumb energy users. When you go home at night and choose to use electricity, it's basically because of convenience. You want light, you want something cold, you want something hot. You don't really think about what it costs. You don't really think about the environmental impact. So what we're learning in Boulder is that there's a lot of pent-up demand to know much more about those factors of energy use.
Do you find it necessary in Boulder to better educate your customers to help them understand how they can save?
I think it's broader than Boulder. I think there's a lot of need to educate consumers on energy, period. I don't think as a society we know a lot about energy use, where it comes from, and the impacts and the costs. So absolutely, the direct answer is yes. Education and communication is key to making a successful transition to a smart grid world.
We need to take a break. We're talking about smart grid technology and energy efficiency. Our guests from Xcel Energy, Michael Lamb and Crystal Manik. We'll be back in just a moment.